Hi, I'm Jaipal Caleb and you're listening to Daily Newsings. Daily Newsings are musings on the daily news. For today's newsing, we turn to the Greater Bengaluru Governance Act GBGA. The Governor of Karnataka gave his assent to the bill in April, thus making it an act. The act will go into effect on May 15th. The act has been controversial ever since it was first introduced as a bill in the Karnataka Legislative Assembly on July 23, 2024. Legislators of the opposition parties in the state even walked out of the assembly hall in protest when it was being discussed. Even civil society organizations opposed the bill. The Karnataka government, led in its efforts by D.K. Shivkumar, the cabinet minister in charge of the Bengaluru development portfolio, and the deputy chief minister of the state, was determined to get this into law. Okay, so why is the act controversial? Why are so many, not just politicians but also common citizens, opposed to the law? And what is the reasoning of the government behind pushing such a legislation through? But before we tackle those questions, let's see what the Act proposes in the first place. In its simplest terms, the GBGA proposes to divide the governance of Bengaluru between seven small corporations rather than have one large governance body such as the BBMP be responsible for the entire city. To ensure coordination between the seven corporations, there will be a Greater Bengaluru Authority or the GBA. The GBA will be headed by a committee consisting of the Chief Minister and the Cabinet Minister with the Bengaluru Development Portfolio. There are, of course, more details, but this is the basic essence of the Act. Alright, so what are some potential advantages of the GBGA? One of the benefits could be greater decentralization. It is not practically possible for one person or one group of persons to efficiently administer a large area. Human beings are limited finite creatures. If a single person is given too many responsibilities, one of the responsibilities, if not more, would face some level of neglect. If an official is fixing one part of the city, he or she is doing so because they are not fixing another part of the city at the same time. This is where decentralization could help. It is merely dividing up the work between more people so that the work is more efficiently carried out. The Act could also help citizens know who is accountable for the governance issues in their area. Rather than have one BBMP to approach for any issue such as irregular garbage collection or lack of water, they can approach their local area corporation. Having officials be more easily accessible makes it easier for citizens to raise complaints and have them be resolved. People in areas of Bengaluru, such as the Mahadevpura constituency, have long felt neglected by the BBMP, whereas areas such as Jayanagar, Basavangudi or Sadashivnagar get good care and attention. But what is the argument of the critics? Well, the critics say that the GBGA merely adds to centralization, although it uses the language of decentralization. The criticism rests upon the composition of the Greater Bengaluru Authority, the GBA, the proposed central coordinating agency. If the agency would have the Chief Minister and Cabinet Minister, isn't that more centralization and concentration of authority with the state government? The Act further states that any major monetary decision or infrastructure development proposed by any of the corporations has to be first cleared by the GBA. First, this will increase bureaucracy and inefficiency by adding one more level of governance. In addition, the power of decision making will ultimately rest with the state government, since the Chief Minister and the Cabinet Minister will be calling the shots as part of the GBA. If the Chief Minister and the Cabinet Minister have been elected into office from parts of the state apart from Bangalore, the people making the decisions for the city would be people who are not elected by the city. If officials fail in their duties, they could be voted out of office in the next election. If they aren't even elected by the people in the city, what would the consequences for their failure be? The whole debate on centralization and decentralization ultimately boils down to a debate on power. Who gets to wield power? The 74th Amendment to the Indian Constitution states that local governance bodies such as city corporations and village panchayats need to be the third level of government in India, with the first two being the central government and the state government. This came into effect in 1993, yet most political commentators observe that the amendment has largely failed in terms of execution. Corporations and panchayats do exist, but the money is largely in the hands of the state government. Even the implementation powers through the police is in the hands of the state government. The local level governance bodies in India are largely toothless. You see, nobody wants to let go of power. Even the state governments, for that matter, had to wrestle and grab hold of power from the central government over the past many decades. Debates on federalism and center versus state issues keep popping up every now and then. The central government did not want to let go of power. Now the state governments don't want to let go of power. Here's another reminder that Christianity is countercultural. Christians worship one who willingly and joyfully let go of all power and made himself nothing. And Christians claim to seek to imitate him. Back to the GBGA. What's the final verdict? Is it better than the current structure? Is it worse? Perhaps only time will tell. Is it true that it is a convenient way for the state government to hold on to power in the city? Yes. Is it true that the previous structure had various flaws and that it neglected various areas in the city in favor of other areas? Also, yes. Both those arguments are true. All said and done, irrespective of whether it is better or not, it has been passed into law. It is here to stay, at least for the near future. At this point, there may not be too much value in debating it anymore, unless you're a legal professional or a political commentator or a policy analyst. What will definitely be useful for Christians is to live faithfully in the new circumstances. And faithful living does not change with the change in the governance structure. It still continues to be loving presence among one's neighbors, diligent and faithful prayers for our leaders. Thank you for listening to Daily Musings.